What does the Bible have to say about divorce in the case of an emotionally abusive marriage? That's one of the most common questions I hear in my practice. I'm Dr. Lenne Hunt with the Marriage Recovery Center. I want to talk about that issue today. The overwhelming percentage of clients and families that I work with come professing faith. They identify as Christians, and so as they sort through options about their marriage, the issue of what God thinks about those options is critically important to them. Many of them have gone to their pastors and sought advice. They've been to ministries, again, with the same quest. They've prayed, they've asked, they've struggled over what does God think. And they usually come to me confused about that. So here's the short version of a conversation that I typically have with them. The first thing that you usually hear when you ask someone in the community of faith, what does God think about divorce, is, well, you know God hates it. And that's true. He does. God hates divorce. It grieves his heart because of what marriage is meant to symbolize. The one flesh relationship that exists among the Trinity themselves. Marriage was supposed to be a symbol of that. It pointed to a larger truth. God does hate the ripping apart of that. But for that to be the only piece of the discussion does people a disservice. Because the truth is that there are many things that God hates, like a haughty spirit, a lying tongue. God hates hypocrisy, when people say one thing and do another, when their lives don't match their words. There are many things that grieve the heart of God. And so it's important that we consider the fullness of that when we begin to tackle this question. In truth, there are many, many, many things that the Bible does not specifically address. Pornography is a really good example of that. You're not going to find that in the Bible. Of course you won't. They didn't have videos. They didn't have magazines. They didn't have cameras. They didn't have what we typically think of as the medium for pornography today. Does that mean God doesn't have an opinion about that? Of course not. But you're going to have to search to find it, because it's not so directly and plainly stated. You won't find scripture that directly addresses, for example, gambling and marriage, addiction and marriage, violence and marriage. What do you do in those cases? What do you do when you honestly want to know the heart of God, and yet the Bible doesn't seem to directly address the issue? The task here is to have to look at the overarching view of the character and heart of God. You can't just pick out one scripture and say this is the whole answer. The whole answer has to look at the wholeness of God. That's harder. It's messier, which I think is why a lot of churches want to avoid that conversation. It looks like we're wandering into gray area here, and that makes everybody nervous. We want one clear answer. And so the clear answers you often get are, God hates divorce, except in the case of adultery. The one very famous example, clearly spoken to in Scripture. But again, that fails to look at the wholeness of our situations as well as the wholeness of the heart of God. There are a lot of issues tangled up in this. And our intent is to address them sort of one by one as we move forward. I'm not going to try to address all of that here today. Mostly what I want to do here is to open the conversation, to say to you that it is complex, that there is much involved here. This isn't just about the letter of the law. This is about the spirit of it. What does God see, for example, in the case of adultery that causes him to say, even though I hate divorce, I see that there may be situations that do so much damage to a one-flesh relationship that the relationship isn't viable anymore? That's a big thought. That's a big question. What are the things that are capable of doing such violence to the unity that's supposed to exist inside of marriage? Is it possible for a relationship or for the hearts of the people inside the relationship to sustain so much damage that repair may be impossible? Again, huge questions. So I want to begin here to say that we need to look more broadly at the revelation of God. We need to have more complicated conversations that take a while to have. We need to get comfortable sitting with God in the midst of them and really asking for the light of revelation to come and illuminate how all of that fits together. That's my invitation to you. If you want to have those conversations, if you want to talk about how God thinks, how God feels about relationships, about the value of the individuals in them, let's do that. You'll see the number to our client care team. Give them a call. Let's at least begin the conversation and sort this through. As scripture would say, come let us reason together, right? This is a hard issue. It is really troubling to people who love Jesus because they want to do what's honorable. And they also don't know what to do with their pain. And so we need to treat both of those with a lot of care. Come and let's reason together.